Before the pyramids pierced the sky, before the first writing was ever etched onto clay tablets, there existed a place in Mesopotamia that no modern map can fully recreate: Nippur. Not a political capital, not a bustling center of trade, but a sacred point known by an ancient name, the place where power descends from the heavens. This was not a place for humans. This was where Enlil reigned. Enlil, the god who did not grant life to humankind, who did not teach them to cultivate the land, who did not inspire art or language, but the god of absolute power, of command, of unbreakable law. Among the cracked, sunbaked bricks remain today, the surviving texts are only faint fragments, scattered records, names worn away by time. Archaeologists stand quietly upon the shattered foundations, measuring, noting, speculating, but they cannot perceive what the ancient writings once warned: this place was not merely a temple. Nippur was a power station, a command center where cosmic decisions were drafted, where the Anunnaki Council gathered to decide the fate of humankind. The debates were never fully recorded, the resolutions were never uncovered, the orders were issued in a language beyond the hearing range of human ears, all evoking a silent, unsettling truth. Within those now ruined walls, a part of humanity's memory was once sealed, once locked away, once reprogrammed. Those who pass through this place today may see only ruins, but those more sensitive can still sense it beneath the arid ground. There lingers a faint resonance, an inexplicable vibration, as if the earth itself is quietly holding on to a secret. And that secret is not meant for the eye to see, not meant for the hand to touch, but for those who still carry enough resonance, enough heartbeat, enough yearning to reach into the deepest waves of ancient memory. Nippur is not just an archaeological story. It is an invisible scar, an echo that has never fallen silent, waiting for a soul keen enough to hear what the world has deliberately chosen to forget. Ekur, Temple. An ancient name that echoes like a buried drumbeat deep beneath the earth, was never merely a place to burn incense for rain, harvest, or peace. It was an artificial cosmic mountain raised upon the flat Mesopotamian plain by what could only be called the hand of the gods, designed to mirror the very intersection of heaven and earth, where the spirit world descended and the mortal world looked upward. The ancient Sumerian text called Ekur the House of the Mountain, but this was not just a title, it was a marker, a signal of a mechanism, a design. At Ekur, the Anunnaki Council entities far beyond mere myth, intelligences vastly surpassing humankind, gathered, argued, commanded, and passed judgments over the fate of humanity. But this place raises a chilling question. Why would a sacred mountain, a symbol meant to touch the stars, be built on a flat plain where not a single natural hill exists? Was it merely symbolic, or was it a constructed replica of a true landing point, a precisely calibrated place designed to receive something from the sky? Imagine this. The baked bricks were not just primitive material. They were arranged into an energy grid, a resonant foundation that could be activated when needed. The terraces, the stairways, the platforms of the temple were not merely for rituals, but resembled a colossal circuit board where energy currents moved between points cutting across space-time. The clay tablets unearthed at Ekur do not merely record sacrifices or hymns of praise. Some describe stranger things, radiant beings, sounds that could not be heard, signals crossing the night sky. Traditional scholars sidestep these texts, dismissing them as metaphor, myth, or superstition. But others, those who step beyond the boundaries of conventional history, have begun to wonder, what if Ekur was not just a temple? What if it was a relay point, an intermediary station, a site of communication with an intelligence not of this world? And if that is true, then the next question becomes even more unsettling. What was once relayed here? The councils of Enlil did not merely argue over the division of lands or the creation of laws. The texts say they deliberated over the flow of time, of life, of repeating cycles where civilizations rose and fell. These decisions were not merely political, they were interventions into the very nature of existence. Every time a civilization reached its peak, every time humanity drew too near the forbidden fruit of knowledge, the council gathered again, and Ekur echoed with a command: restore order. But if it was only about power, why was Ekur built like a device, not merely a place? The lines, the angles, the precise astronomical alignments, as if this structure was designed not simply to exist, but to operate. And what it operated? may have never fully stopped, only gone dormant. Now standing amid the rubble and dust of Ikur, no one hears Enlil's decrees. No one hears Enki's arguments. No priests pace the temple's walkways. But one thing remains: a silent resonance, a faint vibration perceptible only to souls sensitive enough to feel it. Ikur is not dead. It is merely silent, waiting for the right moment, waiting for the final signal, waiting for a heartbeat to slip just slightly out of its ordinary rhythm to awaken a gate that has been sealed for thousands of years. Perhaps the greatest mystery left unsolved at Ikur does not lie on any clay tablet nor in any archaeological book, but in the very harmony between a conscious mind and a secret still humming beneath the ancient ground, defying time, waiting to be awakened once more. The Anunnaki Council. A name that, when whispered, conjures the image of a circle of mighty beings seated not upon thrones carved of stone, but upon symbols and resonances, passing judgment not only over the fate of humanity, but over the very heartbeat of the world itself. Scattered clay tablets unearthed across Mesopotamia record every word, every objection, every divine debate. Enlil, the supreme chairman, his voice like a hammer striking reality itself. Enki, the silent challenger, sowing questions like seeds scattered into the river of destiny. Inanna, unwilling to accept her assigned role, demanding power not for titles but for raw desire. Marduk, the young, burning with ambition, destined to become the rebel who would shape the future. And yet, strangely, amid all these detailed records, there is not a single tablet that preserves a final decision. As if some unseen hand had quietly erased it. As if the gods themselves, or something beyond even them, had hidden or encoded the true outcomes of those councils, locking them away in a shell that could not be broken by words, but only unlocked through resonance, through a wave beyond human comprehension. The ancients never made clear what the Anunnaki Council truly deliberated. Scattered hints suggest they did not merely decide on dividing lands, founding empires, or even waging wars. They spoke of quieter, deeper things, of how to recalibrate the heartbeat of time, of sealing collective memory, of crafting gaps in the stream of knowledge, ensuring that no matter how far humanity evolved, it would always lack one final piece. Some texts mention wordless commands agreements that vibrated only between layers of consciousness, never written down, never etched onto clay, never taught to the priests. These agreements, if they existed, were the ultimate sealed gate where the deepest truth was locked away. And when looking back at history, one can trace the shadow of those decisions. A great flood sweeps through, nearly wiping out humanity but sparing a few as if following a script. Empires rise yet are always cut down before they reach the forbidden knowledge. Prophets emerge carrying messages of a distant origin but never clear enough to fully unlock the seal. It is as if everything was programmed from somewhere, from some moment when the Anunnaki Council once sat, once debated, once commanded. But why erase the traces? Why leave gaps in the texts? Was it merely fear? Merely power? Or was it part of a long game, an unfinished symphony? One, the gods were waiting for humankind, the very species they once created, once saved, once punished, to rediscover and complete. If that is true, then the question is no longer, what did they decide, but rather, who will be the one to finally hear that lingering echo? And if one day those invisible vibrations gently touch a soul, if a fragment of that ancient memory begins to hum once more in the living world, perhaps the Anunnaki Council never truly vanished. Perhaps they are still listening, still waiting, still watching, not with eyes, not with words, but through a silent language that has echoed since the dawn of time. The astronomical traces at Nippur do not merely puzzle archaeologists, they render all of history silent. The ancient temples here were not built at random, but arranged according to a metaphysical logic aligned precisely with distant constellations like Orion, the Pleiades. There have been found star maps so precise they cannot be dismissed as coincidence or luck. And this raises a dark question no scholar has dared to answer outright. Where did this knowledge come from? Was there a prehistoric civilization that reached an astronomical mastery far beyond the capabilities of their era? Or are these the surviving imprints of a guiding hand? Not of this earth archaeologists can measure, chart, hypothesize. But amid the data, there remains a gap that cannot be filled by radiocarbon dating or brick analysis. That gap bears the name resonance. For it seems the structures at Nippur were not merely looking up at the sky, but vibrating with it, as if every brick, every floor, every temple pillar was positioned in harmonic alignment with cosmic wave layers. And if that is so, then perhaps the gods of Sumer, the Enlil, Enki, Ninhursag, were not merely symbols, but actual entities who journeyed among the stars, leaving their frequencies embedded in architecture in the earth, in the very vibrational structure of this planet. The texts inscribed deep into the ground speak of times when heaven was closer to earth, when the stars conversed with the planes beneath human feet. Vague descriptions of light passing through the gates of heaven or spirals linking water and the stars once dismissed as myth now become unsettling, for they align uncannily with modern astronomical alignment grids. If those ancient people lacked telescopes, lacked advanced mathematics, lacked compasses, then who traced for them these lines across space? And why? Could it have been a system not merely to observe, but to connect, as if the Ikur temple and all of Nippur were a massive body, a resonant device tuned to the cosmos, operating not through electricity but through harmonic frequency? Those who entered, if carrying the right heartbeat, the right vibration, might hear something imperceptible to ordinary ears. Perhaps that is why across thousands of years, despite its ruin, Nippur remains the one place where the ancient star maps have survived almost without error, as if the city itself was not merely observing the sky, but was part of it. Perhaps the knowledge that once existed here never fully vanished. Perhaps it was not destroyed, only withdrawn, like a musical instrument gone silent, yet whose strings still tremble, waiting for another hand, another consciousness, to awaken the melody that once echoed between the stars. And if so, Nippur is not merely an archaeological ruin. It is a frozen signal, a wave layer waiting for a mind subtle enough to tune in again, quiet enough to hear what an entire civilization has forgotten. The questions about these astronomical origins may never be answered by microscopes or cartography. They may only be answered when someone in the absolute stillness of mind hears a wordless call and realizes there is something very old, very distant whispering from among the stars. Amid all the layers of power, among thrones drawn from light and commands etched onto vibrating waves, the conflict between Enlil and Enki was never merely a family feud. It was the invisible vortex shaping the fate of humanity. Enlil, the god of law, carried within him the hunger for control, the longing to impose order upon a world shifting in chaotic currents. Enki, god of water of wisdom, was the one who carried the thirst for liberation, who planted within humanity the glimmering sparks of memory of freedom of questions no other god dared allow humans to ask. The council at Nippur was not just a place where gods convened, it was a battlefield unseen where wills clashed not with swords but through undercurrents, through unheard sounds, through decisions never written down yet echoing across millennia. On one side, order, power, a web of control stretching across empires. On the other, memory, the whisper of water, the pulse of things hidden, but never dead. Strangely, among the magnificent temples of Nippur and Enlil's Ekkur, the sanctuaries of Inanna, the ceremonial spaces of Anu, there was no great temple dedicated to Enki, not because he lacked power, not because he was forgotten, but perhaps because Enki needed no temple. He did not need stone walls to hold his name, did not need offerings to sustain his strength, did not need priests to inscribe his will. What Enki sowed into the world was not held in bricks, but flowed in running water, in resonance, in the heartbeat of living beings, carrying the first imprint of creation. For this reason, the war between Enlil and Enki never ended at the council table. It slipped into every civilization, every empire, every prayer, every question. When a child gazes up at the sky and wonders, "Who am I?" Each time humanity drew near its own limits, when intellect began reaching toward the forbidden, Enlil tightened the coils of control while Enki silently stirred the waves beneath, waiting for a soul sensitive enough to hear. Perhaps that is why there was no temple for Enki in Nippur, because Nippur was never his. It was the domain of order of law, of tangled networks binding humanity within the cycles of fear and submission. Enki, the outsider among the gods, the sower of knowledge, but also the bringer of chaos, never needed a throne there. He existed as a current, unconfined, unboxed, always waiting for a crack to slip through to soften the rigid walls of law. And perhaps that is the greatest secret of Nippur, that at the heart of absolute order, there has always existed a fracture, a gentle yet unyielding wave, a shard of memory never extinguished bearing the name Enki. Some of the ancient clay tablets, now reduced to cracked and fractured shards, still whisper of the luminous beings who descended from the heavens, not myth, not metaphor, but descriptions so strange they defy classical logic. They carried commands, not written in script, not spoken by mouth, but emitted as waves, vibrations that pierced through space, resonating with the deepest layers of existence. The ME, the divine codes, the operating core of the universe, the blueprint of order and chaos, were believed to have once been kept at Nippur, sealed by mechanisms not of material, but of resonance, frequency, and waveform. If these ME truly existed, why have they not been found across thousands of years? Why have countless excavations, countless archaeological teams, countless scholars obsessed over broken clay fragments, yet never unearthed anything that truly holds the power to activate? Perhaps the answer lies within the very limits of our approach. Because what was sealed away at Nippur may never have been an object, a treasure, a machine one could hold in hand. Perhaps it was a delicate chain of resonance matching only with souls that carry the right vibration, the right genetic code, the right frequency. The key holder is not a king, not a priest, not a figure of earthly power, but one who carries within their blood a wave fragment that has never been erased, never fully gone silent. Those luminous beings left no instructions in the dirt, no maps traced in the sand, but instead embedded fragments of vibration directly into the current of humankind, waiting for the day they might resonate again. Standing amidst the ruins of Nippur beneath the blinding sun of the desert, some say they have felt a pulse they cannot name, not a sound, not an echo, but a faint sensation in the chest, as if this place is still waiting for someone. Not waiting for the strongest, not waiting for the smartest, but waiting for the right resonance, because the ME, if they are truly hidden, require no physical lock. They require an internal activation, a soul vibrating correctly, a heartbeat aligned, a frequency that unlocks not through touch, but through perfect harmony. And if that is true, then Nippur is not merely an archaeological ruin. It is a programmed meeting point, a cosmic circuit waiting to broadcast a message sent from deep antiquity. Not meant for all of humanity, but for the one who carries the right code, the precise resonance inscribed since the first days when heaven and earth entwined. Perhaps the ultimate weapon, the sealed secret, the final command, never truly vanished. It has only waited, lain dormant like a silent instrument until the moment when a deep enough consciousness approaches, and every layer of wave ignites once more, shattering the silence of millennia to unveil the truth that even the gods once feared. The debates within the Anunnaki Council did not revolve solely around grand matters like floods, wars, or the division of empires. They seeped into a far subtler core layer, what should be preserved and what must be utterly erased from collective memory. It may have been precisely at Nippur, amid the brick walls now cracked and broken, that these mighty gods united to seal away a portion of humanity's ancient memory, locking tight fragments of truth never meant to be carried by humankind into the future. The surviving texts, the shattered clay tablets, speak with a voice full of veiled hints, never telling the whole, never writing too plainly, as if the scribes feared that should the truth spill too clearly onto the surface of words, every divine seal would shatter. Yet among all these powers, Enki, the great exile, the god who once brought water, life, and wisdom to humankind, surely did not remain entirely silent. If he left traces, they were not etched into grand temples, not carved onto proud stone stelae, but dissolved into the very biological and spiritual essence of humanity. Enki needed no stone sanctuary to preserve memory. He sewed it into the heartbeat, into dreams, into the subtlest vibrations of the soul, those fleeting moments when a person stands alone under the night sky and asks, "What am I? Where did I once come from?" The other gods chose power, chose law, chose forgetting. But Enki chose to plant memory, inaudible to ears, invisible to eyes, yet carried in everyone's blood. Perhaps over thousands of years he has continued to quietly send out faint waves, waiting for a resonance, delicate enough, a yearning deep enough, a heart unsteady enough to awaken what has been sealed beneath the dust of time. And when that moment comes, the truth that the council once feared and buried will no longer need to be read from a stone tablet, nor unearthed from deep soil. It will rise already alive, already pulsing from within. Today, Nippur is nothing but ruins, crumbling walls, shattered bricks, collapsed stone columns buried among nameless dust. And yet there are those quiet wanderers who pass through not merely to admire archaeological remains, who have spoken of a feeling hard to name, a vague resonance slipping into the chest, into the heartbeat, into that still moment among the desolation, when one realizes this place has never truly died. Not a sound, not a light, but a frequency so faint, so deep, undetectable, unmeasurable by any instrument. As if the very earth and stone of Nippur are still holding a secret that has never gone silent. Perhaps Nippur was never just an archaeological site. It is like a resonance gate, a vibrational circuit waiting for a consciousness to step forward and touch the right wave layer so it can open on its own. Those who pass through, not all will hear it. Most will only see bricks, dust, decay. But somewhere a few sharper souls, a few irregular heartbeats have caught the wordless call. And it is precisely those irregular rhythms that are the true key. Not strength, not power, not scholarly knowledge, only the right resonance. The matching vibration to the dormant wave will cause the entire sealed gate to spring open, not with a roar, but with a silent tremor. Perhaps the hidden ME, the locked memories, the commands from the time of the Anunnaki have never truly disappeared. They have only waited like an instrument without a player, like an unfinished song for someone to arrive. Someone who needs no words, only to stand still and harmonize, so that all the layers of waves will rise again together. Nippur. The nameless ruin may well be a heartbeat still pulsing quietly in the belly of the earth. A reminder from a time when gods and humans were not yet divided, when law had not yet been fully crushed by fear. And perhaps one day when the right soul steps forward, that gate will open not merely to reveal the truth, but to reignite the resonance that has been sealed away for thousands of years. In that moment, Nippur will no longer be just a pile of broken bricks. It will be the final pulse of ancient memory awakening. Not everyone can hear the call. Among the countless who pass by, among the stream of people who skim past the names Nippur and Enlil Enki, as if they were just faded ancient letters on broken stone, there are still a few souls, very few that quietly resonate, not because of reason, not because of knowledge, but because of a deep resonance no one teaches, no one reminds, existing only as a fragment of sleeping echo within the bloodstream. This has never been just a story, never merely a myth written down and passed along. This is memory that was never written, a covenant between resonance and soul, between waveform and heartbeat, between things that cannot be measured yet have always existed. When the right frequencies align, when enough heartbeats pulse together in rhythm, the gate, Enki left behind a gate, no one knows the shape of, no one knows the location of, no one holds a physical key to may open on its own. No words needed, no hands touching, no gestures made, only an invisible harmony. Perhaps this is why, across thousands of years, every excavation, every study, every search has failed. Because people have searched for clues in the earth, in the bricks, in the sands, without realizing that what was hidden was never out there, but within the very current of living vibration. And when that moment comes, when a soul hears a pulse that issues from nowhere, when a human stands alone in the night and feels they remember something they have never learned, that gate will not open for just one person. It will open for a greater resonance, like a symphony too long suppressed, waiting only for a single note to ignite and set the entire composition ablaze. For Enki, the one who needed no throne, no temple, no praise, cleverly hid his greatest gift, not in places where power could reach, but in the places power most fears, in the blood, in the soul, in the nameless memory. And once that resonance is reawakened, no force will be able to seal it back. No god, no law, no binding can stop the pulse of memory once it is stirred. In that moment, every severed fragment will find its way home, every locked wave will begin to decode itself, and every secret the Anunnaki Council once feared will no longer lie dormant beneath the dust. It will surge, expand, vibrate across every layer of reality as a reminder that nothing can be forgotten forever, nothing can be sealed away eternally. And no one, not even the gods, can erase the resonance they once planted in the human soul at the dawn of memory. If you have ever dreamed of ancient symbols, if you have ever felt a nameless vibration stirring quietly within you, understand this: it is not just the trickery of imagination. It is a wave, an echo brushing against a fragment of memory that has lain asleep since time immemorial. Leave a comment with the number 8, not to prove belief, but to confirm that something inside has just been stirred, has just quivered like a taut string stretched across 1,000 years, waiting only for the lightest touch. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, for this place is not just about storytelling. It is not just words, not just images, not just theories. It is a call, an attempt to summon back the ancient resonances, the wave layers that once linked gods and humans, heaven and earth reality, and something far beyond ordinary understanding. Next episode, the secret of the ME, the divine code, no one has yet explained. A lingering question. If the ME are not merely objects, but bands of wave strands of resonant codes, then who will be sensitive enough to hear, to understand, to step through the gate that has never truly closed? The gate is still waiting. It does not need strength. It does not need fame. It only needs the right resonance. And when that moment comes, no wall, no seal will be strong enough to hold back what was sown into the very essence of humankind since the dawn of memory.